Hello everybody, bit of a different one for you today, because I'm going to climb this church tower that's behind this tree. This is St. Stephen's Church Tower, which was completed in 1868, but as you can see, the church itself does not stand anymore, as with many churches in this area of Elsick, which is where we are and where I'm from. As the population declined in the late 60s and 70s, the church became less and less used until it was all but abandoned, and then it was demolished in the 1990s, as you can see in these pictures. And that's where we start our adventure today, at the remaining church tower. Now, the last photos that we have in the archive from the top of this church were taken back in the 1960s, so I'm going to try and match up those photos to today's modern ones, and also take you on a bit of an explore of the tower and give you some history of the area in general as we go. So let's get started. Now, the tower is very rarely open because it's actually in dangerous condition, but it's open for us today to do these photographs. And the only way to get upstairs in it is through these lovely spiral staircases. There are sort of 3 levels to the tower, as you'll see. Each one gets a little bit more janky than the last. Now, this church tower does have bells in it. As you can see here, they're ropes, but they can't be rang. Because the tower is in such poor condition, ringing them might actually damage it. Now, I'm just going to check out the window here and make sure my bike is still there, because, hey, we are in Elsick. Yeah, it looks okay. Right, anyway, back on with the tour. Now, each of these rooms have these markers in them which measure how much the cracks have grown in the walls since they were last inspected. This room is also full of lots of interesting memorabilia and plaques and things like that they found in the original church building, and it's been moved to here since the church was demolished, so I will film some of these and you can pause the video and read through them if you want to. Has the tonnage of the bells, things like that. So there's this one saying that on Saturday, February the 7th, 1885, 8 members of the above association, presumably those guys, rang the bells on this church for 2 hours and 56 minutes, which the locals must have absolutely loved. Probably was at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning as well. I guess you could wash your hands afterwards in this mysterious sink. The other things on display in here show just what a centre of the community this church must have been, at least at the start of the 20th century, when Elsick went from being a small, almost rural part of Newcastle to an enormously industrious town. This was partially due to the industry on the Tyne, where you had things like Vickers and the Armstrong Works. The population explosion was so great, it actually led to the area becoming slum-like, as there simply was not enough rooms to go around for all the new workers that had moved here. So you had crazy situations like 20 people living to a single house, sending their wages back home to wherever they were from every month and not really caring about the local area. One of the big employers was actually just across the road from this church, and that was Armstrong's Works. Not only did they develop hydraulics, which they were world renowned for, but they also used to make various guns and ammunition. In fact, they could often predict the outcome of any war going on in the world, because they were selling the actual weapons and ammunitions to both sides. The one that bought the fewest amount, they were generally the losers. Now, one last check on my bike, and we'll go up to the next floor. Ah, yeah, she's still there. Oh, I better check on my backpack too. I left it on the ground floor. Ah, yeah, it's still there too. Hey, it is Elsick. You can't be too careful. I just noticed this absurdly undersized electric heater is in this room. What possible... You may as well sit round a cigarette. Anyway, floor 3. So, up another flight of spirally stairs, and we reach the bell room. The belfry? I don't know. There was no bats in it. Anyhow, here we are. This is where the bells live, and we're not allowed to ring them. There's actually a surprising amount packed in this room. It's also the last room that has stairs to it, because from here on out we're climbing. I was surprised to notice that there's more metal in the ladders that go up from here than there is in the actual bell support structure. If you look carefully, most of this is made from wood. The bells themselves, they look really, really heavy. In fact, if you rewind the video to earlier, you'll see the exact tonnage of them. Now, I said we're not allowed to ring them, but I did manage to kind of persuade the guy that's got the keys to this place to do this. Can you flick that one by any chance? Oh, it was at this point that I looked out the window and somehow it's gone from glorious blue skies to pouring down with rain. This means that my bike seat will be soaking. Less chance of it being stolen though in the rain. Anyway, I've got to get onto the roof in this, so this should be interesting. The climbing guy gave me this. I don't know what it's for, but I think it might be to battle gargoyles if they attack me on the roof. We'll find out later. Okay, I'm up on level 2.5. Climbed the first ladder. Now, gotta go up this one. I am all geared up with climbing equipment, but you can't see it because I don't have anyone else to film me. Anyway, let's get onto the actual church roof. Alright, cool, finally. Wait a minute. Why does it all look a little bit like... Oh, yeah. I wear glasses now. I should probably put them on. That's better, and it stopped raining, and we've got our first photograph to match from the 1960s. Here we go! That old manor house is Elsick Dean House, and you can just see the tops of it in the now photograph. It is one of the few surviving mansions from this area that predated the Armstrong works. Nothing else from the photograph is still there though. Right, now I have to negotiate this little barrier here, and I should point out, because of that sudden downpour, everything is absolutely soaking up here, so I'm going to take it easy. So what else have we got in this view? Well, down there is Scotswood Road, which you may have heard of, and actually just here there used to be a school, Credis Park School, from when this area was vastly more built up. An interesting fact about it was it had a playground on the roof. Wouldn't want to lose your football. Wouldn't want to be underneath the school when someone lost their football either. Okay, now another photo to match up. Now this was taken of one of the construction workers who was up here in the 1960s, the last time this church was repaired. Probably the last time as well, I mean, let's be honest. As you can see, pretty much nothing remains, not even those flats, which at the time were brand new when the photograph was taken, and were in fact then demolished in the early 2000s. And on we go. Just excuse me while I teleport onto the next part of the parapet. I've never been bothered by heights, but you shouldn't listen to the void. Anyway, more photos to match up. What have we got here then? Well, what do you think this used to look like? I bet you weren't expecting this. Yes, this area, like I said, used to be insanely built up, and this photograph really does show you just how packed in those houses were. Actually, while we're up here, we can take a look at my most hated building in Newcastle. No, not Credis Park Flats. That thing. But we'll save that for another time. Oh, remember that gargoyle defeating device from earlier? It turns out that it's actually just for this, and it keeps getting stuck. Time to teleport again. Another set of photos to rewind time to. Here we find the view from up here while Scotswood and Elsick were being demolished. And then, like I said, they built those crappy flats. And speaking of crappy stuff, yeah, I think I am standing in what we all think this is. But I can also show you that view where I'm standing from a different angle, which looks a lot better. Okay, onwards around this side. Now, I have tried to find some dark history of this church, some distant scandal from the past, some vicar sent off to another parish, but no, actually seems to have been a nice church and a nice place that just ran out of parishioners. It's a shame, as this tower it's pretty beautiful. I mean, just look at this. I just noticed that I'm being watched. At least they're watching me and not looking at my bike. Still there. So time to match up another photograph, and this time it's of the vicar himself, Reverend Quinn, who's up here the last time they were repairing this place. And we can line this up here with Scotswood Road in the background. And as I said earlier, Scotswood Road was a very different place back then. Some of the other things you could have seen from up here included the gasometers, which would have probably been quite useful in the current climate. Then a little further along, part of Armstrong's Works, and further along more so, Scotswood Road. This exact part of Scotswood Road used to look like this in the 1960s. So you can see not a single building remains. Barely the road layout even remains. Okay, on to the last little part of the tour of the roof here. I'm just going to appreciate some of the architecture, which I do love. The weather vanes, the cast iron ties, the strange little wooden door, this lovely sign on the climbing equipment that I've been using, this 250-foot drop off the side. I love it all. It's been really good fun. Now, it's time to get down. I've just realised I've got to climb down these ladders with my shitty feet first and hands second. So this is going to be absolutely grim. And it was. Look at that. God. Oh. It's making it worse. Disappointingly, this was the only piece of graffiti I could find in the whole tower, and it looks like it's from 1987. Maybe they didn't let the choir boys into the tower. Right, that's me done. The photos have been taken, and I will put the then and now ones on the website for you to check out. My hands are reasonably clean, and now I've just got to get my bike.